Hello everyone and welcome to Savannah News.
Today our breaking news is about how important was the Peace of Westphalia to the formation of modern international order.
But what was the Peace of Westphalia? Well, the Peace of Westphalia, signed in 1648, ended the 30 and 80 Years' Wars and created the framework for modern international relations. Now, what is the 30 Years' War? Well, it was a conflict between founding Catholic and Protestant states within the Holy Roman Empire, which gradually evolved, becoming a conflict involving most of Europe. In this regard, this peace, which was made of two different peace conferences, was the first attempt at modern international diplomacy and formally solidified the beginning of religious toleration from a political perspective. It was one of the first attempts at codifying an international set of laws and essentially provided the basis for international communities like the European Union and the United Nations, and even laid the groundwork for an early American nation.
The Peace of Westphalia solved mainly three issues of particular significance. The first of those issues is religious freedom, which was solidified by the treaties of Münster-Osnabrück. The second was the nature of war and its intended uses. And the third, but not least, outcome of the Peace of Westphalia is sovereignty. Equally important, the Peace of Westphalia established the precedent of peace reached by diplomatic congress and a new system of political order in Europe based upon the concept of coexistence of sovereign states. The Westphalian principle of the recognition of another state's sovereignty and right to decide its own fate rests at the foundation of international law today. In addition, the principalities of the Holy Roman Empire, like northern Italian principalities, became states. Historically, when the word state acquired the meaning of a territorial political institution, the political institution was a constituent unit of an empire. After the word state acquired the meaning of an independent political institution in the second half of the 18th century, it has continued to apply of a territorial political institution that is a constituent unit of an empire or a commonwealth, like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, that are such states.
Thank you very much, Mariana, and on to the next section.
So we are going to know what was the formation of the international modern order. So it begins with the international impact of the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution, and moves on to the formation of nation states in Europe and outside. So it results that the model reflects upon the combination of factors that caused this long 19th century and to the end and the carnage of the Great War. So the component that it had was first, refugees and forced migration; second, poverty, hunger, and development; third was global trade and global finance; fourth was terrorism and globalization; the fifth one was proliferation of weapons of mass destruction; and sixth and seventh was nationalism, national self-determination, and international relations; and the seventh one was human rights.
Okay, now, on the other hand, it is important to know that in many ways, the rise of the modern international order has been linked to the rise of global dominance by specific social groups, which we call the West. Over the past 250 years, Western dominance has shaped the political and economic structure of international relations. It has also produced a distortion of knowledge known as Eurocentrism in history and the social sciences. The term Eurocentrism is applied to any type of attitude, ideology, or method of history and evolution of society that believes that Europe and its culture have always been the center and engine of civilization, and that equates European history with universal history. So, the 1648 Peace of Westphalia marked the end of wars of religions on Europe because European states could no longer intervene in other states based on religious beliefs. In other words, states assume sovereignty over their own territories, and that is how it starts the beginning of modern international order.
Now, talking about the concept of Peace of Westphalia, we can see a relation with what? With international relations and international business. We can see that these concepts create the nation state as a form of political, legal, and administrative organization, creating delimitations in the territories where each new state was going to control. Also, applying the concept of national sovereignty in their jurisdictions. This makes the states with the greatest economic capacity and military capacity begin to take control of other territories such as Europe and America.
With the Peace of Westphalia, today there are trade relations between states and merchants where they need to go through a regulator, the state. These treaties began diplomacy as a form of a permanent link between states and inaugurated the principles of sovereignty, legal equality between them, and balance of power. And finally, in terms of politics, they began to talk about treaties and different strategic political alliances. This helps improve trade between states and also begin to implement human rights. The new concepts and principles that emerged from the Peace of Westphalia served as the foundation for the international relations that are not known today.
In conclusion, the Peace of Westphalia was of the utmost importance for the beginning of the well-known modern international relations, both for the base of communities such as the European Union or the United Nations, as well as for the commercial and political relations that could be initiated between three delimited states regarding the different alliances that were created, treaties and IC, between regulated exchange to the different states. These treaties gave way to better relation and the implementation of the human rights.